Honduran electoral councilor Marlon Ochoa denounced several irregularities detected during the presidential elections of November 30th, denouncing them as the most manipulated in the country's democratic history. The Palestinian Center for Studies on Prisoners reported that the Israeli occupation forces arrested about 570 Palestinians in November in the occupied West Bank territories. Russia and India strengthened cooperation ties during official talks between President Vladimir Putin and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Honduran electoral councilor Marlon Ochoa denounced several irregularities detected during the presidential elections of November 30th, denouncing them as the most manipulated in the country's democratic history and condemning the process' lack of transparency. Speaking at a press conference on Thursday, Ochoa read a statement titled Electoral Coup 2025, where he denounced that the preliminary election results transmission system is a real trap, whose deficiencies prevent certainty about the results at the presidential and deputy levels, in line with the accusations of candidate Rixi Moncada from the Libre Party about electoral fraud. In this regard, the council presented 7 key points detailing irregularities such as the elimination of biometric control, errors in 86.6% of the records, and the automatic transfer of votes.
We are perhaps in the least transparent election in our democratic history, and I believe that this election will be remembered in history, not only for what we are seeing through what is taking place in the disclosure system, not only because of the vote buying that occurred on election day, also not only because of the intimidation to which thousands of people were subjected in all the towns of Honduras, but also it is an untransparent and fraudulent election because of the vulgar foreign intervention that has existed. Never in the history of the Latin American region there has been such manipulation of an election as has occurred in this election. We are faced with the most manipulated election in our history, surpassing even the 2013-2017 election. To the Honduran people, what I can tell you is that you can expect absolute transparency from me.
Human rights defenders condemned the proposal by the far-right presidential candidate Jose Antonio Cast to release prisoners convicted in Chile for crimes against humanity. The proposal to pardon human rights violators represents a painful step backward and a direct affront to victims and their families, they warn. The presidential candidate is in favor of pardoning prisoners over the age of 70 with terminal illnesses such as those in Punta Peuco prison. Miguel Krasnov, sentenced to more than 1,000 years in prison for crimes committed during the Pinochet regime, is being held there. The statement warns that any attempt to reverse court rulings or seek impunity will only deepen Chile's wound. The Argentine Transport Workers Union began a bus strike to put pressure on the authorities to pay wages. According to the transport workers, at least 30 bus lines are abstaining from work this Friday because their wages were not paid on time and in the proper manner. In addition, in many cases, only 50% of their wages were deposited. In this scenario, the Argentina's Union of Motor Trams clarified that if the corresponding salaries are paid during the day, the lines that are on strike will resume normal service. The union also emphasized that the government is responsible for this transportation strike since wages are part of their families' livelihood and threaten their economic stability. And the Mexican Senate approved the draft decree enacting the general water law and amending various provisions of the national water law with the aim of returning this resource to the nation. The project, promoted by President Claudia Sheinbaum, was approved with 85 votes in favor and 36 against. The proposal was sent to the executive branch for its upcoming promulgation. The debate for the approval of the water reform took about 8 hours in a tense atmosphere marked by accusations between the government and the opposition sectors about the flow of water service. The water law seeks to revisit the country's water regime through some key changes, including the elimination of the free transfer of concessions and stricter penalties to combat illegal practices. Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez presented to the National Assembly on Thursday the bill for the financial budget 2026. During her presentation, Rodriguez stressed that the document was made amid a special context characterized by an unprecedented siege and threat against the Bolivarian nation by the United States government. The Vice President affirmed that presently Venezuela is defending an unquestionable truth that was born during the independence wars and which was engraved in the proclamation issued by Liberator Simón Bolívar at the Angostura Congress in 1818. Rodriguez emphasized that Venezuela is telling the world today that it has reinvented itself, that it will not surrender to any power, and that it is totally an independent nation. And in Venezuela, a new group of national migrants arrived at the Simón Bolívar International Airport in Maiquetía in the state of La Guaira on Friday as part of the humanitarian actions implemented by the Venezuelan government through the Back to the Homeland plan. The Eastern Airlines plane arrived from Phoenix, Arizona in the United States and marked the 97th such flight from the Bolivarian government's plan. 172 Venezuelans were aboard, among them 141 men, 26 women, and 5 minors, who were reunited with their loved ones after being welcomed by national authorities. The flight is the 4th arrival of the week and the 2nd landing specifically from the United States, highlighting the Venezuelan government's commitment to guarantee the safe and dignified return of migrants deported by Washington. And the National Bolivarian Armed Forces of Venezuela, as part of Operation Bolivarian Shield 2025, detected and intercepted an aircraft without an identification code heading west of the country. The Commander-in-Chief of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces, Domingo Antonio Hernandez Lares, reported the aircraft was detected in the territory of Ready No. 3, Los Llanos, in the state of Apure. Hernandez emphasized that the appropriate legal verifications were made to control the information that it was a 2-engine Cessna 310 aircraft without a visible registration number, which did not comply with the protocol established by the law on control for integral defense of Venezuelan airspace. In this regard, they ordered a forced landing in the municipality of Pedro Camejo in the state of Apure to immobilize it on the ground. In the United States, despite public outcry over President Donald Trump's policies, the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit of Washington approved the temporary deployment of National Guard troops in the capital city. On Thursday, a district judge temporarily suspended the order for troops to withdraw from Washington. This ruling contravenes the decision issued by District Judge Gia Cobb, who last November declared President Trump's order to deploy thousands of National Guard troops to Washington to be unlawful. Let's recall that this deployment is part of a militarization strategy promoted by the Trump administration that involves sending troops to cities such as Los Angeles and Memphis, supposedly to combat crime following the increase in protests against its policies. We have a first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. In Cuba, the 46th edition of the International Festival of New Latin American Cinema began in Havana with an official selection of 222 artistic works from 42 countries. The opening ceremony was held at the Charles Chaplin Movie Theater, where the multiple and complex realities addressed by the new Latin American cinema were highlighted. In addition, the festival organizers emphasized national efforts to ensure the visibility of the event despite the difficulties. The festival began with the screening of the Argentine film Belén, directed by Dolores Fonsi, backed by specialized critics. The film was selected to represent Argentina at the 2026 Oscar and Goya Awards. And the documentary Norita about the Argentine Plaza de Mayo mother Nora Cortiñas arrived in Spain to generate dialogue about memory, feminism, human rights, and to inspire social movements with Nora's global struggle. The documentary Norita was screened at a meeting against impunity and in defense of human rights held at the House of Solidarity and organized together with Hijos Barcelona, a feature film that narrates the life and struggle of Nora Cortiñas from when she was searching for her son who disappeared during the Argentine dictatorship until she became an icon of human rights and feminism. The documentary will also be screened in Italy, the Netherlands, France, Germany. And Spanish broadcaster RTV has withdrawn from Eurovision after Israel was cleared to continue participating in the regional song contest despite their ongoing genocidal actions against Palestine. On Thursday, the European Broadcasting Union voted at its 95th General Assembly in Geneva, clearing Tel Aviv's performance in the competition. Shortly after, Madrid confirmed its decision to quit, adding it would also not air the show's semi-finals nor final. Ahead of the vote, Spain had denounced Israel's participation, arguing that its aggression on Gaza and its use of the contest for political purposes made it difficult to maintain the competition as a neutral cultural event. The Iberian nation joins the Netherlands, Ireland, and Slovenia, who have also withdrawn from the competition to take place in Vienna, Austria in May of 2026. In this context, the Minister of Culture of Spain, Ernest Urtasun, voiced his support for the broadcaster's decision and condemned Eurovision for whitewashing a genocide by allowing Israel's participation.
I would like to express my full support for this decision. I regret that Eurovision is allowing the whitewashing of an ongoing genocide, as is happening in Palestine, by accepting Israel's participation. I believe that a cultural and sporting boycott of a state that practices genocide is essential, as I have said many times. In the case of South Africa, this boycott was key to ending apartheid, and we defend that boycott. And in the face of Eurovision's incomprehensible decision to allow genocide to be whitewashed, Spanish public television has made the right decision. And today I want to show my full support for that decision, which is a decision of dignity and respect for human rights, because culture must be at the service of peace and human rights, and nothing else.
Israeli occupation forces arrested about 570 Palestinians in November in the occupied West Bank territories. In a statement, the Palestinian Center for Studies on Prisoners reported that among the 570 detainees, there are about 8 women and at least 41 minors. The institution also highlighted that since October 2023, the Israeli regime has detained more than 21,000 Palestinians in the West Bank. In this scenario, the Palestinian people and human rights groups asserted that arbitrary and administrative detentions violate due process of law by not allowing the presentation of evidence without the possibility of being tried or convicted.
The Israeli raids happen every day, but this time it lasted longer. Every day, when I go to dawn prayer, I find the Israeli soldiers right in my face. They don't distinguish between good and bad, or old and young. Everyone is treated the same. Provocation and humiliation, that is their policy. I tell them I am elderly, but they make no distinction between old and young. Everyone is treated the same. They tell me, raise your hands and spread your legs, then they beat and humiliate.
You know, for our second break coming up, before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final break, don't go away. Welcome back. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi hosted Russian President Vladimir Putin at the presidential palace in New Delhi as part of an official visit to discuss issues of mutual interest. In this scenario, the leaders decided to allocate $100 billion to the Russia-India Cooperation and Trade Exchange Program until 2030. During the meeting, at least 15 agreements and a dozen documents relating to trade and investment are expected to be signed. In this regard, Modi expressed his conviction that the meeting with Putin will give new impetus to economic cooperation between the two countries. On the other hand, President Vladimir Putin confirmed Russia and India as close partners, also highlighting that trade exchange exceeded $64 billion in 2024. In addition, Putin's agenda includes attending the 23rd Russia-India Annual Summit, meeting Indian President Draupadi Murmu, and visiting the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial.
The partnership in the energy sector is successfully developing. Russia is a reliable supplier of energy resources and everything necessary for the development of India's energy sector. We are ready to continue ensuring the uninterrupted supply of fuel for the rapidly growing Indian economy. Of course, the bilateral cooperation is not limited in this. A flagship project on building India's largest nuclear power plant, Kudankulam, is being carried out. The consonance of the positions of the two countries has been confirmed. Russia and India pursue independent and autonomous foreign policies. We, along with supporters from BRICS, SCO, and from the states of world's majority, promote the processes of forming a fairer, more democratic, multipolar world order, and advocate for the fundamental principles of international law enshrined in the UN Charter.
For his part, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlighted that the economic agreements signed with Russia will diversify bilateral trade among the nations.
Taking economic cooperation to new heights is our common priority. To make this a reality, today we have agreed on an economic cooperation program for 2030. This will make our trade and investment diversified, balanced, and sustainable. Energy security has been a strong and important pillar of the India-Russia partnership. Our decades-long cooperation in the field of civil nuclear energy has been instrumental in making our shared priorities on clean energy meaningful. We will continue this cooperation.
In Russia, the armed forces shot down more than 70 Ukrainian drones over the last 2 days. The Russian Ministry of Defense specified that in the last 48 hours, the army shot down 76 combat drones from Kiev and hit targets in 145 regions. The ministry also stated that the targets included transport and energy infrastructure that supplies the Ukrainian army and long-range drone assembly workshops. In addition, the Russian fleet destroyed 2 unmanned Ukrainian vessels in the northwest of the Black Sea. On Thursday in the United States, the presidents of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda signed a peace agreement with the aim of ending the armed conflict in eastern Congo. The Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi assured that his country would fully play its role with dignity, conscience, and consistency, despite it being a demanding and quite difficult path where peace would not only be a desire and an aspiration, but a turning point. For his part, Rwandan President Paul Kagame expressed his gratitude for the United States government's mediation in resolving a conflict that has lasted for 30 years and involves numerous efforts to reach a peaceful agreement between the countries. In Australia, reports indicate that a forest fire has struck the north-central coast of New South Wales. The The Weather Service issued a heat wave warning in Sydney after recording the highest temperatures in almost 2 years of 45 forest fires. Firefighters reported the flames burned hundreds of hectares of land and several homes in the area were affected. Meanwhile, they explained that they are working to ensure that the impact of the disaster is not serious for the inhabitants and their homes, as well as the economic impact on farmers in the area. Ladies, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.